Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise this evening to speak on a really important issue, something that's been discussed multiple times throughout the day. I rise to talk about honesty, and I rise to talk about integrity. And I call on the Premier, who is no doubt watching what's happening in the chamber, to enter the chamber and join the chamber, because I'm actually speaking about the Premier tonight. The Premier will be well aware that on or around 3 p.m. on the 19th of July, a comment was placed on my Facebook social media from the Premier of Tasmania. The comment followed some engagement around the AFL team in Tasmania. There was a screenshot placed in the feed of my Facebook, and it was a snapshot of a statement that the Premier had made, and I read it into the Hansard. The Premier wrote in a Facebook post, "Unfortunately, it's not just the team and the $120 million yearly boost to our economy that the team brings that will lose. It's also the $130 million for York Park gone." So I say again, the Premier wrote on Facebook that unfortunately it's not just the team and the $120 million yearly boost to our economy that the team brings that will lose, it's also the $130 million for York Park gone. Now, I know that's not correct, so as it was on my feed on my Facebook, I replied to that post on my feed, and I simply said, "He's wrong to say that. The York Park money is separate. I'm confident of this." Now, what is extraordinary and quite unique, the Premier himself then wrote on my feed. I'm not aware that he's written on my feed before, and I'm not aware that he's written on my feed again. But the Premier then wrote on my feed, "Really sad to see this, Janie." So he was aware he's talking to me on my feed, personally. "Really sad to see this, Janie. Some things should be above politics. Needless to say, what you're claiming is incorrect, and it's not even close. Are you really okay with killing the team? That's where you're heading, but you know that. Tasmanians won't forget this." Well, Premier, I will not forget this. You claiming on my page something that I said and knew to be true that was incorrect. There is no doubt in Tasmania, Australia and across the world, honesty should be above everything in politics, and to intentionally write something that is not correct on my feed directly reflects on my integrity and my reputation, and I won't have that. I had the opportunity to personally confirm face-to-face with Federal Member for Ballarat, Minister Catherine King, Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government, that the $65 million from the federal government is not at risk. Those funds are secure and they are not tied to the Macquarie Point project. So, Premier, you are wrong, and you stated that on my feed, and I expect you to come in here and apologise and correct the record. Further, Premier, I expect you to correct the record that you know, and I know, and in fact the Deputy Speaker knows, that the $65 million of state funding for York Park is not at risk. Those funds are secure. They were never tied to the Hobart Stadium project because they were committed prior to any public discussions about a stadium in Hobart, and they were committed unconditionally. Premier, it is not okay at any time on any issue to intentionally mislead the Tasmanian people and to intentionally tarnish someone's reputation. I ask you to come into the chamber to apologise to me personally and the people of Tasmania, and to correct the record, and not at one point again ever repeat the statement that the funds for York Park are at risk. Deputy Speaker, I rise this afternoon to speak about an issue that I've had great joy in participating in. It's actually not an issue, but it was an event. On the weekend, on Saturday, it was the opening of the trout season. I had the opportunity over the weeks leading up to the opening of the season to meet with a number of anglers across Tasmania and to meet with Anglers Alliance Tasmania to hear more from their perspective about the importance of our inland fisheries. It was really delightful to meet with the Chair and the Vice Chair of Anglers Alliance Tasmania and to hear about the great work that they do in their community. And of interest to me particularly was the work that they do with young people in Tasmania and young anglers and their Kids Go Fishing Days. It's really great to see their passion and their interest, not just in catching a fish, but all of the benefits that are associated with fishing in Tasmania. To hear the stories of people, getting ready for the opening of the season and going out to take some time out from life, to have some quiet time with family, with friends, to connect around the rivers and the lakes of Tasmania was fantastic. The positives of that, a small positive, on opening day I did catch a fish, my first trout, which is exciting. On a fly, having had some lessons the day before, but also having been out previously, it was my first. It was a beauty. It was a small but colourful, beautiful, small trout.
Brown or rainbow?
It was actually a rainbow trout. Now, I'm going to take that interjection because they are my next comments, and I was intentionally already going to transition from positive to concerning, and the interjection that I take is from former Minister for Primary Industries and Water, Guy Barnett. The purposes of my contribution this afternoon are also to express concern about the investments that this government make into our inland fisheries service. Now, the former minister would be well aware that the budget over a long period of time of the Inland Fisheries Service has been frozen. In fact, there were 6 to 7 years where there was not even any indexation for that, and it has put the ability of the inland fisheries fieldwork under pressure. Now, we, across tourism, across fisheries, across our rural and regional communities, delight in the world-class reputation of our inland fisheries, but in order to maintain and sustain that, the inland fisheries must be appropriately funded by this government.
Mr Speaker.
Honourable, the Leader of the Greens, Dr Woodruff.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.